Hi, how you doing, and welcome back to another video on the channel. What we have for you today is our preview video going into Game Week 12. I'm going to take a quick review of how my team did in Game Week 11, and then I'm going to show my confirmed wildcard for Game Week 12. If you are new to the channel, please do subscribe, like the video. We've had a few new subscribers over recent weeks, and it's awesome, and it really is appreciated. Hopefully we can keep it going as we get closer to Christmas. Let's take a look at how my team did in Game Week 11. So I'm not going to spend too long on this, mainly because I showed it in the early preview video, but also because it wasn't great and I didn't really feel the need to force a wild card, but I also felt like I couldn't make as many changes as I want to without using it in the process. And I did have 3 free transfers in the bank, but to sort of get out Kevin Schade and swap my defenders around who might be cheaper and changing fixtures from good fixtures to bad fixtures, I don't really want to be using free transfers on those sorts of players. And by using the wildcard, it also means I can save my 3 free transfers and build up even more in the next couple of game weeks. So whilst my team was doing quite well on the pitch, it wasn't translating into points in FPL, which when the game is FPL isn't ideal. So we're going to talk about my wildcard team a bit more in a second, but this was a team that I felt just needed a bit of a refresh, and it's a good point in the season and quite a lot of fixture swings. A lot of people use the wildcard earlier in the season, so hopefully I can gain a bit of an advantage and sort of turn around a few red arrows and go back up the ranks. So the fixtures for this game week are pretty interesting, and in terms of captaincy, it's probably the most open it's been all season so far. You've got your obvious standout players like your Palmer, your Salah and your Haaland. You know, they've all got good fixtures. Palmer away at Leicester City, that's a fantastic attacking fixture. Even Man City at home to Spurs. Spurs defence have had some suspensions and injuries. It's not a bad time to be playing them. And Liverpool away at Southampton. You know, Salah hasn't played in the international break. He's in good form and he'll be well rested. But even if you look beyond that, you've got possibly Man United away at Ipswich, Bruno Fernandes in Amarin's first game. He's a good option for captaincy. You've also got someone like an Alexander Isak at home to West Ham. So you've probably got about 5 or 6 legitimate options. I think if I own them all, I'd probably go Salah first, Palmer second, and Haaland as my third option. Because really, you've got your most expensive players in your squad in order to captain them. You know, they're the ones that are not only costing the most transfer budget, but they're the ones that are the highest owned by other FPL managers. So if they do well and you don't own them or you don't captain them, you run the risk of falling behind, you know, the most players possible. And whilst it's not the most adventurous way to go with your captaincy, I think it's probably the safest way to go at this stage of the season still. You know, when we get a little bit further down the line over the season, then you could maybe go for the most differential picks. But maybe there's not a general consensus for captain this game week, in which case, if you were going to go a little bit different, this probably is the best week to do it. So I've said what I think, but really what you want to do is if you're going to captain a certain player, especially a bit of a differential player, is own it and, you know, go for it and be solid with your decision. And therefore, if it doesn't pan out, at least you're not regretting it too much because you were conscious of the risks when you went into it. So this is my wildcard team for Game Week 12, and not really any spoilers here because it is the same as my wildcard video earlier in the game week. So go check that out if you want to see why we chose these players in a bit more depth. Link should be on the screen towards the end of the video and in the description. But overall, I'm happy with it, and it's the sort of team where, especially in this game week, I look at it and I think, how do I not score 100 points this game week? This team is fantastic. And of course, that's never really going to happen, right? There's always something that throws a spanner in the works, and there's maybe an injury or two, and it just doesn't work out. But right now, on paper, I just look at it and think that is a brilliant team. And all the defenders will get clean sheets, all the midfielders and strikers will score, and you never know, one day it might happen. But I did have a little play about with potential other options because Brian Mbeumo is coming out in a couple of game weeks, and I thought maybe if I made the move now, I could look at getting in Nicholas Jackson instead of Strand Larsen. But it just resulted in a bit of an imbalance in the team, and it didn't really have that depth that I quite like with this squad that we've got on the screen right now, because as you're getting into the Christmas fixtures and the winter, you do kind of need a bit more of a deeper bench, or at least a bench that's going to contribute some sort of attacking fixtures, because there's going to be those injuries. There's going to be players on 4 yellow cards, and I would never say don't get a player in because they're on 4 yellow cards, but it's still a reality that another booking and they miss a game week, and that's not really worth transferring them out. You should just keep them on the bench for a game week. But then who's coming off your bench, and do you feel happy with them securing those FPL points? So there's a lot of players here that maybe wouldn't work out. Maybe Bruno Fernandes doesn't work out. Maybe Alexander Isak or Watkins doesn't work out. And I've got a certain sort of idea of what I'll do if and when that happens. And like I said earlier in the video, I've got 3 free transfers, and I don't want to be making any other transfers after this game week for a couple of weeks. At that point, I'll have 5 free transfers, and that's like a mini wildcard. So I could completely reshape the team again if these decisions turn out to be wrong ones. So by game week 14, I am going to move on from Mbeumo. There's a couple of options I could go with. I could go straight to Jared Bowen. Now, he is a bit of an early shout for a good pick because he has Leicester, Wolves, Bournemouth, Brighton and Southampton from game week 14 onwards. And he also might have a new manager by then. If West Ham, they've got a couple of difficult fixtures coming up, maybe the manager gets sacked and they have that new manager bounce going into December. Another option for Mbeumo is that I do sell him to a cheap midfielder and I just stash the cash, and it's kind of there for like if I need it, and I've already used that free transfer and I've got that money ready to go. But there's not really the need to do that. I might as well just hold Mbeumo until I do actually need to transfer him out, unless I do get to 5 free transfers and then I need to sort of use one before I lose it. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. For the next 2 game week, I'm not going to be making any changes. There's one possible change before the deadline that we spoke about in the other video, where I'm looking at maybe moving Strand Larsen to João Pedro, but that really determines how fit João Pedro is. And I wouldn't be too surprised if you watch my video next week and João Pedro's in this team. We've just got to leave it a bit later to the deadline in terms of how his fitness is looking, because I think if he's fit, he's Brighton's main guy and their fixtures look good. But if he's not fit, Strand Larsen is someone who plays 90 minutes. And a few weeks ago, we were talking about how awesome Wolves' fixtures are ahead of them anyway. And if I wasn't wildcarding, there's no way I'd be taking Strand Larsen out. So I've got to be careful not to make transfers for transfer's sake. But you've got a couple of days now. If you think I've made some absolute errors and some players that I shouldn't have or players that I should get in, pop it in the comments. Likewise, if you've got any transfer questions of your own, it's always good to chat FPL and just get different people's perspectives. Hopefully you've had a nice break in the international week and you're ready for game week 12 in FPL. So thank you very much for listening. Good luck in this game week, and I will see you in the next one.